Hey everybody, it's Avi Tenenbaum with TFRP, and we made a video 2 weeks ago about what faith isn't, and then we had a video in the middle between then and now, which was about how fools and idiots view faith. And we said in that video how faith isn't this wishful thinking, and that you don't take any responsibility, you don't do anything on your own, and then magical things will happen. So now we're ready to talk about what faith is. Now, I'm going to say in the very beginning, the real name for this video should be What Faith Is Partially, because having the transcendent faith that we are trying to create, that's going to help us overcome mental health challenges, struggles in life, suffering. It's going to have to be a really good faith, and it's probably going to include many, many parts, okay? Because there's faith in tzaddikim. There's a concept like that in the Torah that maybe one day we'll talk about. There's faith in ourselves, to believe in yourself, right? There are so many types of faith, things to believe in humanity, etc., right? When we're talking about faith today, we're going to be talking about a particular sliver of the faith needed to help us overcome anything in life, okay? So I'm looking at my trusty notes that I have. My books are not with me today, so we're just going to glance over here and tell you some of the ideas. If you look in the Sefer Minchas Asher from Rav Asher Weiss, he says an idea which I always knew to be true, but it's good to see other people who are much smarter and greater and older than me writing it down. So he says that Emunah and Bitachon, which is basically faith in God and trust in God, are two sides of the same coin. And this is a very basic idea, but when it comes to matters that are so big and have such big implications like trusting in God, it's a big responsibility to talk about them and not to make a mistake, God forbid. And so that's why I sometimes going to quote ideas from other people that I have, but it's good that they say these ideas too. So trust and faith in God are two sides of the same coin. It's not two different constructs. In other words, let's say that believing in God is a theoretical idea. I believe in God. I have a belief about something. Like you believe that a certain pizza shop has good pizza or has bad pizza, or that if you go there, you're going to have to wait in line a long time. That's a belief that you have, right? So you can believe there is one God. Okay, that's a belief. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, Hashem Hu Elokim, whatever. Trusting in God is applying the beliefs that you have about God in real time and acting as if your belief is true, right? It's not just that you have a belief, but you put your money where your mouth is and you act as if you believe it, okay? So I was speaking to a rabbi, mentor of mine that I learn with sometimes, and I was saying, what do you think about this idea? And I was telling him over this idea. And he says, I think of that idea too. And for me, the parable to that is if you have a 2-year-old and you put them on a bunk bed and you say, do you want Abba to catch you? And they say, yeah. And they go, what? And they jump off the bunk bed right into your hands. They believe that you're going to catch them because you're Abba. You would never do anything wrong to your 2-year-old kid. And they act as if it's true and throw themselves off the bed into your arms. They trust that you're going to be there and you're going to catch them and nothing is going to happen to them. So that's putting their belief into action. Okay? So if I believe in God and I believe what the books tell me and what yeshiva and seminary taught me, but I don't act like it, and I catch myself all day walking around as if nobody's looking after me, there's no divine intervention trying to guide me to the right place, I'm fending all for myself, everything is going to go bad, there's no one orchestrating things in this world, there's no way I'm going to pay my bills at the end of the month, and you're walking around with tons of anxiety and tons of worry and anger and resentment and all this stuff, then as we're going to see soon from some of the Svarim, that means we're not yet putting our faith enough into action that it changes the way we think about life and carry ourselves throughout our day, okay? Now, I'm not saying that that's easy. I'm not saying fake it till you make it. I'm not saying that just listen to these shiurim and then you'll be this like angel and you'll transcend everything in 5 minutes and they'll never have any worries again in life. And I'm not saying that. It's easier said than done, and we have our whole lives to work on these topics. But there is a concept that there are people who worked on the areas of Emunah and Bitachon, faith and trust. They developed the right things to believe in. That's a skill in and of itself, to know what to believe in and how to modulate that. How much do you believe in God helping you? How much do you believe in you helping yourself? That's just one example, and that was the topic of last week's video, right? Is it like 100%, 0%, 50%, 50%? How does that work, right? How much do you pray? And when you pray, do you pray but then also do your own thing that you're supposed to do? Or you just pray? Or you do like 1% effort and 99% prayer? Or do you do 99% effort and 1% prayer? So what you believe in and how things operate, kind of understanding the theoretical side of this, maybe that's more related to Emunah. But bitachon is going to be, okay, those are my beliefs. This is the belief system that I formulated. I'm going to act on it. That doesn't mean I'll be an angel. It doesn't mean anxiety won't come up for me, or depression, resentment, anger, worry, grief. But it means that when those things come up, I'm going to access my beliefs and my belief system and try to apply them in the moment in order to throw myself off the figurative bunk bed into the arms of God, into the arms of those beliefs that I have, and to say, for example, this is just for the sake of example, let's say there's a belief, everything Hashem does, everything God does is for the best, which all these ideas, you can't even believe in if we don't understand in a genuine way what they even mean. But let's say we know what that means. Everything is for the best. Avi, how could it be? My child died, that's for the best. I had to foreclose on my house, that's for the best. So these are big discussions, we'll have to get to them, we'll get to them soon. But let's say I believe that, but now I'm feeling anger, rage, resentment. I'm meant to access my belief system and grab onto it and apply it in this place. And then walk around in this challenging time holding on to that belief and trying to use it to change the way I show up to the situation. So that's Emunah and Bitachon. Okay, two sides to the same coin. Now here's a really, really interesting idea, and a somewhat new idea that I never really got into until I learned this. If you look in Rav Asher Weiss's Emunah and Bitachon, nice book, on page 4 and 5, he quotes there a Maharal in Chidushei Agados, Makos 24a, and in Chayves Halvaves Shar Bitachon, Perek Zayin. He says, lastly, he also says this from Rabbeinu Yonah, Mishlei Gimel Vav. Okay, so I don't have the books with me. Maybe I could take pictures of this and add it to the video. But here's the idea. The idea is, why should we go through all this effort? Why should we learn a new belief system and then try to cling to it as if our life depends on it? And what's this whole thing? So what Avi Tenenbaum keeps saying, what I keep claiming, is that we want to create some sort of transcending belief system that's so powerful that it raises us above our challenges, our shame, our weaknesses, our suffering, and it makes life possible to live, because life is kind of hard to live. There's a lot of hard things in this world. And we quoted the pasuk for that. Tzadik be'emunaso yichya. The righteous person, it is through his faith that he lives. He's able to live because of his faith. Without faith, he couldn't live. He couldn't get through life, okay? And we quoted Rabbi Nachman last time in a previous video, 2 videos ago, and we said that faith was like a walking stick, and we're like going on this uphill battle in life, and we're using this walking stick of faith to get through everything. Okay, fine. That's true. But the sources that I just mentioned their names, they add another level, another layer. They say that there is a very blissful, incredible, experiential, spiritual way of living in this world. And I'm going to bring like a secular paradigm or example to this that some people can relate to, okay? Because the people that we talk to in TFRP are from all sorts of interesting backgrounds, okay? Let's say people venerate and respect and revere the Dalai Lama. I've never been to the Dalai Lama, I've never seen it before, but when I've met people that have met him, or I've heard audiobooks of people describing their visit to him, this was like this profound, incredible experience and spiritual teacher, and that guy is living on this different domain of life. Like he's living life from some other place, and from that place, life is just incredible. And this guy blows their mind, right? He's just a mind-blowing personality. And whatever he does, that magic, if you can tap into that, it just makes all of our problems possible to hold on to. And it makes the beliefs that he offers to people an incredible experience, an uplifting experience. And all of a sudden, life doesn't just become a way to get through life, but it becomes like this incredible journey, this incredible uplifting experience that in its own merit is worth pursuing because it itself is gratifying. So it's not only something to overcome suffering with, faith. Faith itself is not only a tool, a walking stick to go up that mountain, it itself is also an enjoyable experience like no other. Okay? And I believe these sources that I'm quoting, and they're all trustworthy, and they're painting a picture for me that I'm trying to get to, and I'm trying to share this with you. And I've experienced this in tiny bursts and moments of my life here and there, including last Thursday night. For just a few moments, I had very spiritual experience where I kind of felt what I'm talking about now for just a very short, fleeting moment. But faith, living with faith, is, they call it dvekus, connection. In other words, I can believe in God, but have no interactions with him, and then I have no relationship, and then my technical relationship to him is meaningless. It's like you can have a parent, and then you don't speak to your parent for 25 years, so you have no interactions with them, and then there's no meaning to the fact that that's your parent, because they're technically your parents. It means certain things in DNA or stuff like that, or historical things. But in your day-to-day life, you don't experience being parented by that person. You don't experience the powerful potential of the relationship of a child and a parent because you have no interactions for 25 years with your parents, right? It's the same thing with people that are married, but they don't spend time together, or they just do business together. They have no meaningful, intimate interactions in which they develop a relationship which is so blissful that it's an incredible thing by itself, which if you ever had such a thing, you know what I'm talking about, right? And so faith is that interaction. It's that glue. It's that activity, that behavior, that thing which without it, you can just aimlessly go through life and wing it and kind of do it on your own. And aside from life being scary without faith, and aside from not having perspectives to help raise you up over difficult things, but you have no deeper relationship with God. And God, aside from me believing he actually exists, he doesn't just exist. He's there, and he's a power, he's an energy that you can interact with and feel and experience and connect to and dip into and get filled up by all the time. But that's only if you know how to dip into that and plug in your plug into that socket all the time. And so the way we do that is faith. E.g., i.e., or whatever the right English is. For example, trusting in God at the end of a month when you can't pay your bills and you're not sure where the salvation is going to come from, but you believe in your belief system that God can help and that God created this situation, or you maybe created it by being not responsible, but God is privy to the situation and God can help you. And of course, you're being responsible now. You're taking responsibility for your actions. You're doing whatever you can, all that stuff, because that was the point of the last video, right? So you did that, but you know that God is privy to your situation and he's able to help you, right? You believe that in your mind, but now is the time to take that off the shelf and put that into action. Use your training. Go live that way today. Go act that way as if that's true. And then you're seeking out God in this difficult situation. And you're relying on him. You're relying on that walking stick. And now you're feeling connection and developing a intimate relationship with God. And you're walking around that way. And the more you do this, the more intimate the relationship is. And the more intimate and more interactions you have, the realer and deeper that is. And the more beautiful that is. And you've just earned a best friend and a parent and anything and everything that you can imagine and everything that the Torah describes God to be. You have that now. Can you imagine what that's like? Okay? In psychotherapy, we talk about self-parenting, self-compassion, right? And we tell people who've had difficult parental relationships and a bad upbringing and a broken home and all this stuff, we try to teach them how to kind of reparent themselves and recreate their reality on their own, right? So we have this idea where you can create some sort of other parental system, place, reality, thing, which you rely on, and it feels good, and you heal from that, and you get some strength from that and connection, right? You could do it with yourself, but you can do it with God. And so Emunah and Bitachon is meant to create those situations. And so therefore, here's the clincher. Therefore, the more often that we take life situations hour to hour, minute to minute, day by day, in all our affairs, in all our situations, in our relationships, in our business, in our spiritual endeavors, every area of life, in losing weight, in catching the bus on time, if we seek out God and attribute what happened just now to God, oh, I missed my bus, that was meant to be, unless you were irresponsible, right? Which it's still meant to be too. We have the very first TFRP class, if you never saw it, was about that topic, big topic. But, things after the fact, that's part of God's plan. Things that you want to embark on and you want to do, we turn to God and we ask God to help us. We involve Him. We pray to Him. We include Him. We think about Him. And things that happened or are happening, we attribute to Him. And before you know it, God is everywhere. And it's like the Kutzker says, where is God? Wherever you let Him in, right? Famous line from the Kutzker Rebbe, who was an incredible personality, very sharp person that you can learn a lot from. So now we're living this incredible life with that connection, with that dveikus. And there's nothing as sweet as that. If you've ever had a deeply intimate relationship with another person, whether it's a permitted relationship, the closeness you can have to God is even better than that. And that's what David HaMelech says, Va'ani kirvas elokim li tov, right? That's how the Mesilas Yesharim in the first chapter is talking over there. The Ramchal says that David HaMelech was a king. The guy had everything. He had a lot of wives, he had money, he had a lot of stuff. He had power, he had influence, he had Torah, he was a big Talmud Chacham. But he said, of all the things that I have, kirvas elokim li tov, this intimate, spiritual feeling of connection and relationship with God, there's nothing as sweet as that. That is the sweetest of the sweet. And that's what these Sfarim that I mentioned before, that's what they're saying you can get if we develop Emunah and Bitachon and keep clinging on to these ideas in all of our affairs. Okay? And so that requires a paradigm shift of starting to see the world in a new way. And now we're going to get into those details. Okay? So we're on page 2 of my 3 magical papers. Page 2. If you look in the Sefer Eitzos Mivuaris, which is from a student of Rav Nachman of Breslov, his name was Rav Shimshon Barsky. It is one of the easiest Sfarim in the Breslov system to understand. I have no idea if it's translated in English, but it's super easy to read in Hebrew, and it's a great buy. And it covers a lot of famous topics that Rabbi Nachman spoke about, and he takes it from the esoteric level that Rabbi Nachman talks about in a very abstract way, and he brings it down to the most practical, actionable, doable level. And so it's a really great book to look at. And especially when, like I said before, when I'm talking about topics of faith, I'm not a man of a lot of faith. I'm growing in these areas like you. I'm not any great person or expert. So there's a lot of responsibility when we talk about these things, and I'm afraid to make a mistake. And so I'm always checking out with these greater people than me, who were older, greater, and wiser, how they describe the beliefs that we're meant to have. So I looked in Eitzos Mivuaris under Emunah, which is basically the very beginning of the book, because it's Aleph Emunah. It's arranged by the Aleph base. And he has there this whole list of sub-beliefs that when you believe all these things together, it creates a Emunah system. In other words, like if I want to have a good relationship with my wife, okay, I have to believe many things about her in order to make that relationship happen. I can't just believe one thing. So just believing in God, God exists. God is one. That's a great belief. We have to believe that, but that's not enough to create the faith that we're talking about. It's going to require many derivatives and offshoots of those things, subtopics, subcategories, toldos, if you will, that come out of those major core beliefs, the derivatives of those beliefs, which if you believe all the tiny beliefs all together, that creates the faith that we're looking for. So I'm going to give a partial list of things that he says. And by the way, this does not include the Yud Gimel Midos, the Yud Gimel Ikrim, the 13 principles of faith, which is another idea which deserves a whole other class. And to be honest, I'm very worried about giving that class because it's a really hard class to give. Those are even more hard topics to understand and talk about. But we have an idea from the Rambam. There are 13 principles of faith that every Jew must believe. It's those 13 things. So I'm not even getting into the 13 today. Today we're without numbers. I'm just going to tell you some landmark beliefs that the Musar Sfarim talk about. And when I quote these things from like Reb Nachman and his Talmud, it doesn't mean it's a Breslov idea. It really doesn't. I've learned many systems of Torah, and so this is a universal idea. Just he spells it out in the most clearest way. It's just beautiful. So here we go. To believe that everything is good and everything that happens is for the best, but truly for the best and for our best, not just for somebody else's best, not just for God's best, but for our best. To believe that. And to believe that there's no bad. And to believe that the bad that we see, let's call it suffering. It's suffering and it's purposeful. And oftentimes it's meant to be corrective and help us get back on track, or it's purposeful to help us pay back a debt that we owe. In other words, there are many subtopics we can go into about suffering, and we're not going to do that today. I have a whole class I gave on that in Russia, Ukraine recently to psychologists treating Ukrainian soldiers on the front lines. Maybe if I can, I'll put it up. But everything that happens is for the best and for our best, and even the bad things that happen, they're not bad. Let's call it suffering. And the suffering has a purpose, and it's for our good. Okay? It's a huge topic to get into. We're going to get into it, bli neder. We're going to get into it. We have to get into it, bli neder. But that is one of the beliefs that we have to have if we're going to create a faith in Emunah that's going to transcend our suffering and help us be the greatest people we could be in this world and in the world to come. Another belief is when we see people who are evil that are being successful, or we see people making bad choices and it seems like they got away with it, to believe that it's a test. To believe that it's a test. In other words, when you go through life, you can interpret everything a certain way, right? That's what Emunah is. It's about developing a new belief system that carries you very far in life and brings out the best in you, right? I'm not here to sell these ideas to you and tell you why they're true and why you should believe in them. And if you struggle with that or something, so there's kiruv yeshivas for that or whoever deals with that. I'm telling you ideas today that the Torah says, if you have these beliefs, it will carry you far in life. It's just a fact. It's just a fact that the people that had these beliefs, it carried them far in life. It got them through suffering. It got them through challenges. It helped them be the greatest people they can be and push themselves beyond anyone's wildest dreams to reach their limits and give so much back to the world and to create a legacy for themselves in this world and the world to come. And they believed in these ideas, and they're worth sharing. And that's where I'm coming from. So, to believe that when we see the success of people who are evil, they did something really bad and they seem to have gotten away for it. Don't say, oh, there's no justice in the world, and there's no God in the world, and all that stuff. But instead to say, this is a test, to test and see how people show up to this situation. It's to test how much we believe in our ideas. What are we made of? And to really create us to be the greatest people we can be. There are many reasons as well, even in that subtopic, which deserves another share, which I can give, just on why does God do that? Why does God create these tests? Why does God make evil people to seemingly be successful sometimes, and what's that about, okay? Different topic. Okay. Another belief is that when you do the right thing, that it always takes time to see the result. It's like the flip side of that other idea, right? Here's another belief. To think about how sadness, worry, our questions, resentments, confusion, it all comes down to faith and our interpretation of our life circumstances. It all comes down to Emunah. It all comes down to faith, which means equal sign, our belief system, how we interpret events, which has everything to do with psychology, right? Except the Torah is telling you what to believe. You know, a person missed the bus. They're so fuming mad. Why? Because they believed they should have caught the bus and they missed it and it's not fair and it's wrong and they try so hard and the bus company's terrible. But maybe there's another belief in a different belief system which says, you know why you missed the bus? Or again, talking about someone responsible. You know why you missed the bus? You know why the bus never came? Because it wasn't meant to be. And that was the best thing for you. And if you're lucky and you pray and you pay attention, maybe you'll even discover why that's true, which sometimes happens. Okay? And so to believe in divine intervention, to attribute meaning to things that happen to us, and not just to ascribe it to luck and things that aren't fair and are fair, and the country and the politics and the market, the inflation and whatever it is. Okay, I'm a very worldly person. You know that I know very much what's going on in the world. I'm academic. I do research. I care about research. I care about science, current events, secular wisdom, which the Torah says, "Chachma b'goyim tamin." It has value. So I'm not naive. But together with all of that stuff that I think has what to offer for certain things, and the Torah lets us to get into that stuff, at the end of the day, everything is from Hashem. Everything is from God. To take everything that happens to us and hand it back to Hashem, hand it back to God, hand it back to divine intervention. By practicing this a few hundred or thousands or tens of thousands of times, that's where we start to feel dveikus and feel bitachon and feel genuine trust in God, and it's real, and we can rely on it and do it, and we've done it, and we're, that's when it's professional level, and that's where Hashem is trying to take us, and it's through all the things that happen in our daily life, and it's through constantly making these attributions to God over and over and over, that we start to develop a new way of thinking, a new way of viewing things that happen, a new way of viewing the past, the present, and the future. And that is a faith that will be transcendent. So just to keep going and to finish. Reb Shimshon Barsky in Eitzos Mevil'or says, when we depend exclusively on nature and on Mother Nature, right? The Dow Jones Industrial, or whatever you believe in, and we forget to put God in the picture, we set ourselves up for disappointment. And there's no room in that place for connection, for dveikus, for that sweet, intimate relationship. There's no glue with God in that place, because we didn't make the room for him to be, because we said from the Kotzker, for example, where is God wherever you let him in, right? And so life becomes meaningless and aimless and purposeless and unfair and unjust, and add here whatever you want, and there's nothing to organize those ideas and to make sense of them. And there's no place in there to develop that relationship with Hashem. But if we hand it always to God and we're looking for him and seeking and trying to find how he fits in here, we're going to keep finding him, like the Kotzker says, and feeling that connection and developing that relationship, and then we get transcended above the hard things. Reb Shimshon Barsky finishes to say, nothing good ever comes out of over-reliance on oneself without involving God. And he says that in every situation in life, there's always free will and the opportunity to choose a perspective that advances our faith or stymies our faith, right? You can have the sea being split. And it could be the most incredible miracle, or it could be, according to some scientists, who, if they would have been there, they would have known exactly what it is. But their best theory is it was a hurricane and an earthquake and a tsunami all at the same time, and a tornado, which the winds coming in a certain way, at a certain place and time and temperature, created a situation that the sea appeared as if it split. So you can take any situation, and it could be the greatest miracle of all history, and you can downplay it, or you can see it for what it is. Just like we make good choices and bad choices, and who we hang out with, what we eat, what we watch, what we read, you can make a choice on what you believe. And you can choose perspectives in every scenario that advances your emunah, advances your belief, finds God more often, or that downplays everything and makes everything more and more random and nihilistic and disorganized and unjust and empty and without God. The choice is ours. Okay? Says Rav Shimshon Barsky that our leaders influence how we think and go through life. So it's very important, the topic of leadership, and to pay attention to who's leading us. Where do we live? Where do we get our ideas from? Who are our thought leaders? And where are they taking us? Maybe they're taking us to a place that does not advance our faith. And that's a bad leader. We don't want a leader like that. They're not going to create a belief system for us that's going to be transcending. They're going to lead us into the dark, into some bad places. Then Rav Shimshon Barsky says that in order to reach faith, and to not just hear these ideas in a shir, but to have them transform us, we have to cling to them as if our life depends on it, with radical honesty, without bias, without covering things up, without taking what we want and leaving the rest, and bringing the Torah towards us and staying in our comfort zone in this convenient little bubble that we decided to orchestrate for ourselves. No. It's about you bringing yourself out of your comfort zone to the ideas that have existed for thousands of years, that have been shown to work by very great people who have transcended their suffering and the suffering of the Jewish people and all the generations, and taught these ideas to their communities during the Holocaust, during all the Churban Beis HaMikdash, the 2 Beis HaMikdashes that were destroyed, and all the suffering and inquisitions and pogroms and things that we had. Look at the Piaseczna Rebbe, just for the sake of example. The Piaseczna Rebbe, the Rebbe of Eish Kodesh, that was alive, and then he eventually died in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. That guy was a firebrand of faith. If you study anything from him, he was exuding faith from every pore in his body. And it's no wonder that he was such an important figure during the Holocaust. The people in the Holocaust needed him. And he had the perspectives that helped his community until their last breathing moment, till the Nazis, Yimach Shema V'Zichron, killed them. He helped them to have a vision and to have beliefs that carried them through the hard times. And he talks about this in his books too, but we're not going to get into that for now. Okay? We need leaders like that, and we need people that are going to push us towards a faith that we're not even comfortable with, and that's good. And we have to work on ourselves to swallow it, instead of just like filtering out what we want. Because if you take like 20% and leave the other 80%, that's not going to be the faith that is this original faith of thousands of years in this tradition, passed down from generation to generation, that carried our people. Okay. We need to learn how to not hang out with people who are shallow people. He talks about this too. Anshe Sheker. They don't run after truth. They don't care about the truth. They're Anshe Sheker. They're shallow. I'm forgetting the word in English. Laissez-faire attitude. Whatever. Everything is whatever. Everything is just to get by and to get through the day and to say what you want people to hear you say, and, reach what you're trying to get out of them and that type of thing. If you hang out with those people, or we are that type of person, we are never going to develop the faith that's going to get us above our troubles, because it requires truth. We said this 2 years ago. Emunah needs truth. It needs emes. Alidei emes ba lidei emunah. We said that from Rav Nachman, and we're saying it today as well from Rav Shimshon Barsky. If you look on people's Facebook stories or WhatsApp stories, I am guilty of looking at people's WhatsApp statuses for a few years now, okay? I mute a ton of them, but some of them I look at. And it's always amazing to me. There's like the same 4 or 5 people for the last 6, 7 years that they always put on their status every few months. I'm telling you, every few months. They put on their status the same memes and ideas about like, when things get hard, then you see who your real friends are. And then you realize that you don't really have any friends like you thought you did, except 1 or 2 people. And they're really hurting and something just happened. And I speak to them sometimes and I say, what happened? And they say, oh, this guy messed me over and these friends didn't invite me to this place. And they're living this shallow life with shallow people and their relationships and their life decisions and where they're trying to get to. It's so empty. It's so low gradient. It's so low resolution. It's so not anything worthwhile that raises us up and makes it justified for us to get through the hardships of this life, and they get messed over again and again and again. And they don't realize that they're digging that grave. And they're not going to find Emunah that way, because Emunah requires truth. And if you clung to the truth and you hang out with truthful people that help you get to the truth, you're going to have quality people surrounding you that sell you truthful ideas, which will lead you to a powerful faith. Okay. We said that, he says that a person needs to learn how to manage wisdom with faith, logic with faith. That's a skill that one has to have if he's going to develop a faith and hold on to that faith. It's very easy for ideas that we read, biases that we have, we twist information, we interpret things, we ask a shaila to a rabbi, but then hear what we want to hear, or ask a therapist something and say over what we wanted them to say, that type of thing. Or scientists who are biased for certain reasons, they do a study and then they draw the conclusions the way that they wanted to find them, right? So we have to learn how to be unbiased and balance the idea of objectivity and wisdom with faith. Because if we're not careful, our mind will overrun our beliefs and warp our mind, and our biases and ideas will be misapplied and leave no room for that faith. So that's a big topic. We're not going to get into that now. And finally, I'm going to say the last idea on this paper and in this video, and this is a frightening one, and that is, says the Eitzos Mivaros of Rav Shimshon Barsky, that there are certain bad choices and sins that cause us such biases and warped thinking that it will completely usurp and undo, sabotage any chance of having faith. Because there are certain, now I can put the papers down, finally. Because there are certain things that we want so bad that we're willing to do anything to get them. Because we have such lust and such desire and such fantasies that will bend the whole world backwards in order to get them. But when you bend the world backwards and twist reality to get something, you can't see things clearly anymore. And when you can't see things clearly anymore, you know what happens? You're very far from the truth. And when you're very far from the truth, you can make really crazy mistakes, do really insane, regrettable things that I know real people that have done. You can believe the fantasies that you weave in your own mind. You can believe all the fears that you create in your own mind, and those things will bully you and pull you and push you to very dark, bad places to make really crazy decisions. I mean, if I could, I would tell you some of the really bad decisions some people that I know just recently made. I mean, it's astounding. It's frightening. It's frightening that we are our own worst enemy. But says Rav Shimshon Barsky, there are certain sins and lusts and desires that they warp our way of thinking and pull us out of reality. And when we do that, we can't possibly have a faith that's going to be transcending. We can't possibly. And then our faith is going to be this really shallow faith that we see a lot of times. I'm not going to say names. I'm not going to say exactly what and put my finger on it. But it's like people trying to kind of like, tell themselves to believe in something and they don't really exactly believe in it. And it's really like shallow and it's missing a lot of pieces. And and it's not really transcending, and they're kind of saying it because you're supposed to say it, but they never get to that place of the dveikus and the connection and the increased fear of heaven and relationship with God. And we should see a faith that's so quality and genuine and real that it reduces our worries, it reduces our anxieties, it reduces our fears, it helps us to carry ourselves more effectively in life and make better decisions, have better relationships. That is a faith that we're trying to aim at. A faith that carries us through the Holocaust. Could you imagine a faith that's strong enough to carry some people through the Holocaust? Do you know what the Holocaust is? Do you know what the Holocaust is? And if you read books about the Holocaust and watch old accounts of survivors talking, I'm not that old, but I'm old enough that I noticed that I'm older than a lot of people that I talk to nowadays. And when we grew up in school, we had Holocaust survivors telling us the most heart-wrenching stories that I still remember. A reality that you can't imagine. Complex post-traumatic stress disorder times 1,000. I mean, so demeaning, so cruel, so insane and unpredictable and terrible. And some people had a faith that helped them overcome that and rebuild from that. Can you imagine that? I need some of that stuff. That stuff is going to help me get through the small stuff that I deal with. So that's what we're aiming for. Thanks for listening. If you think this video made sense, please hit the like button. It really helps. Last time that I said that, 2 people hit the like button. I appreciate it. Hit the like button. Share it with people. Get people to subscribe to the channel. I spend a lot of time on these videos. I don't make any money on it. I do it because I want to grow together with everyone else. So spread the wealth, and that's my greatest payment. Thank you for everything, guys. And Hashem, God, should help us to have real faith that carries us through the things that are ahead of us. Thank you for everything.